So, Steve, it's Panama on the horizon now for the Canadian men's national team. Big window for them now. I think that we're looking at every window now for Canada ahead of the World Cup as being a huge window in terms of the competitive side, because there's not going to be an awful lot of competitive games between now and the World Cup in 2 years' time. So, how do you see this Panama game going, Stevie? What are you looking for throughout this window?
I think you're right, Kev. They've got to treat every window like it's enormous. Every single game matters, and they can't really focus too much on is it competitive or is it a so-called friendly. Nothing's a friendly for this Canadian team, and I'm sure
Mm.
anybody that's lucky enough to be selected in the 11 is going to treat it like that because they want to make sure they're in that 11 come first game at BMO Field in 2026. So it's a big one. It's against a team who again are there or thereabouts in the CONCACAF rankings. They've done really well, Panama. They've been in good form for a few years now. But I think it's a game that Canada have got to go out and dominate. They've got to dominate the football, as they really did against the US and Mexico in the last window. But I think they've got to
Mm.
get the goals in this one, Kev. It's got to be a convincing victory. If Canada really want to be considered the best team in CONCACAF before the 2025 Summer Gold Cup, they got to start winning these games 2-3, even 4-0. They got to be ruthless. That's the extension for this team. That's the improvement, I would say, for this team to create the chances they have been creating, Kev. But they've got to put the ball in the back of the net,
Mm.
and they've got to see their main guys, Larin and David and Davies, be ruthless when they get in front of goal. Do you agree?
Yeah, well, we've got Jonathan David right now in incredible form, Stevie. We know what he's been doing with Lille domestically at club level, but obviously on the Champions League stage, when it's highlighted scoring such a big goal as the winner in which he scored the other week against Real Madrid, it highlights his importance to the Canadian side. But when the big games have rolled around, Stevie, he hasn't necessarily performed against the big teams. So I wouldn't necessarily put Panama in the bracket of a big nation, of a big team, Stevie. So if I'm going to judge Jonathan David against some other strikers that have played around the world that haven't necessarily put themselves in terms of scoring goals or scored the goals against the bigger nations, they always seem to perform against sides that the side that their national team should be beating. If you get what I'm saying there, so Jonathan David has got to be looking at the Panama game and thinking, I have to score at least one goal in this game. I have to perhaps even go and get multiple goals in this window to try then to catapult himself and get himself going through a spell where he hasn't been consistently scoring, has he? Let's be honest. I think he's been playing okay in the national shirt, but I think when you're coming into the national team and you're in form for your club, it always gives you something special. I want to go back to that point quickly that you made there, Steve, before I let you go in on Johnny David, where you said the players have to treat every game like a competitive game. So many games for me personally, Stevie, when I would have been playing at international level, when the friendlies come around, you're not, as bad as it sounds, you're not as mentally tuned in as you would be when it's just naturally a qualifier or a competitive game. Every game has to be not like that for Canada. I'm sure that is the message from Jesse Marsh, particularly, as you say, for Jonathan David in particular. It's got to now look at this window and go, goals are essential for me to get my international career really up and running ahead of the World Cup.
Yeah, I think it's like that for a lot of the players, Kev, because they're fighting for places. But it's got to be like that for David and Davies and Estacio as well, isn't it? They've got to treat it like this is a vital match because Jesse Marsh needs a complete performance. He needs all these guys to contribute and to be at their best. And I think that's maybe one of the question marks that you could put against Canada's stars and certain starters. Have they been truly at their best in the red of Canada? Jonathan David, for me, to go back on him, is, he's a wonderful player. He's a hard worker. He brings so much to the team. But he's going to have to be clinical and efficient in this game and in these next games. We don't want to see him missing chances that we expect him to score. He's got to put them
Mm.
away. He's got to start showing that he's got the ability or be able to take the Lille form, take a club form into the international football and not miss any chances. And I think if Canada are ruthless, Larin's the same. Larin's in decent form as well. His fitness has
Mm.
really improved in recent
Yeah.
times. So having the two guys up front is amazing for Canada. They're two excellent players, but they got to be clinical. They got to be ruthless in front of goal. The other thing that I want to point that I want to make here, Kev, is like we've got a few guys playing in Europe now. We've got Cornelius, got Bombito, Schwanier. These guys have went away. They've found some good club football, some high level stuff. I want to see them come. I know it's only been a month since the last window, but I want to see them come back every window and see an improvement in their game.
Mm.
The whole point of getting players to Europe and to higher level is for them to become better, to improve. So I'm hoping that we see that improvement in these guys, that we see Canada just get a little bit better every single game, every single window, because we know that there's a huge gap if they're going to get to knockout football at the 2026 World Cup, and they're going to go hopefully quite far in the knockout. We need to see improvement. The gap needs to be closed between Canada and the better nations. I'm not going to say the best nations, of course, but the better nations, that they can go and win a big knockout game. So I'm excited to see how these guys come back, how they can puff their chests out. You got Bombito playing with Nice, you got Cornelius at Marseille, two huge clubs in a great league. I want to see them come back, Kev, and I want to see them really be dominant and lead that back line, lead this team when they play this Panama game.
Yeah, it's always a point I always make to you. You'll always be my go-to guy on centre halves, and for your leadership skills and what you brought to the side, and they're still relatively inexperienced at international level. They've had a great Copa America now as a pairing together. They are getting better and better. Of course, as you said, they're playing for good club sides, playing at a good level at Ligue 1 in France. I've seen Derek Cornelius a couple of times this season. I think he's taken to the Marseille jersey very, very well, Stevie. I think he looks comfortable. He looks confident when he's playing there. So that's going to be an interesting one to me. Mathieu Soigneur, Stevie, he's another one where I've been unsure about him. I have to say that over the years playing for CF Montreal. But I thought he was so good at the Copa with Canada. I know he only got limited game time until the semi-final and third and fourth place playoff game, but I thought he was tremendous in that game against Uruguay. Really good. I think the way he took the ball, I think he's taken that forward in his career now. And it's about moments in people's career, isn't it? And how you then can kick on from good experiences that you've had. And Soigneur might be in that maybe phase of his career now, Stevie, where he is really ready to go on to the next level. And I think it's an interesting point to see. Yes, he's playing in Switzerland right now, but can he now do well in the next year or two, get himself a move to an even better league in Europe, and then really go on and show where he is?
This is a massive game for him. He really has an opportunity here to establish himself in Coney's absence through injury as a partner alongside the Stackhouse. He did so well in the last window that I think this is another game for him. And he doesn't have to do too much in this game. He's just got to be the best version of himself. He is a player who keeps the ball moving. He's technically pretty sound. He's a good partner to Stackhouse because he plays off him. Stackhouse does not like to be buttoned down by being a number six. He likes to go into areas where he can either hunt the ball or get on the ball. And I think Schwanier being that balance and that partner is huge. So what a massive game for him, especially while Nathan Saliba, his old Montreal teammate, is playing really well at club level. And he is someone with so much talent and so much ability that I think he's probably breathing down his neck a little bit in terms of being that other central midfielder, Konya, Eustáquio, Schwanier, and Saliba as being someone who can step into that. So I'll be interested to see what goes on there. I expect Saliba to get minutes, but I still think Schwanier will start that match. And it leaves us with the biggest question maybe of all, Kev. I think probably the most serious competition in the squad is that goalkeeper between Crepeau and Dane Sinclair. It's been back and forward, hasn't it, Kev? And I think there's a real question mark as to who will start this match.
Yeah, it's probably unthinkable, really, Steve. If we were going back to, say, the middle of Copa and even just prior to Copa, how well Max Crepeau had played in the France game in the lead up to Copa, and then his performances during Copa America, we thought that's him now. He's going to be number one for a long time. But his form hasn't been what many in Portland think it should be. They feel as though that he's not been performing the way that he's probably been performing in the national jersey, the national team jersey. So You know what I think of him, Stevie? I think he's incredibly calm. I think he's very good for a back four or five, whoever it's going to be that plays in front of him. I think he's not over erratic. I don't think he makes lots of mistakes. And I think he's quite calming on the team. But there is a suggestion, maybe even coming from Jesse Marsh, that this is a hot race to see who's going to be the number one come maybe in the next 18 months. It's not necessarily as clear cut as maybe many suggest it might be. I know, again, Steve, you've worked with both goalkeepers. Dane Sinclair, for me, it might be his time is about to come, but I don't think he's necessarily um, as calming as an influence on the side as maybe Max Crepeau is. So that's what leads me always to go back to Crepeau, that I like him as a goalkeeper because he's in the mould of goalkeepers that I would like as my number one. So it's going to be an interesting battle, that one, Stevie. I think it's a really um, maybe time for Dane Sinclair to continue his form that he's been showing at Minnesota, to continue that going forward, and leave it in Jesse Marsh's mind to think, I'm better than Max Crepeau, whereas Max Crepeau just seems to do the business and get on with things, doesn't he?
He does, and that's where his strength is, Kev. That assuredness and also that leadership ability of Crepeau's to be the Camelin influence to sort of marshal a backline. That's probably one of Dane Sinclair's gaps in terms of is he that reliable goalkeeper back there. I think when you look at the talents of both these guys, and I mean no disrespect to Max Crepeau, but I think Dane Sinclair's got a higher ceiling. He's got more potential, but he's just got to keep up that consistency and keep up that club form. He's got to be eradicate mistakes, which have kind of been there early in his career. And I think overall, if Dane Sinclair does that, he might end up surpassing Max Crepeau. But it's a keen battle, isn't it? It's a good one to watch. I think both these guys
Mm.
really feel like they're number one. So there's that kind of healthy competition there. And it seems like there's some doubt in Jesse Marcy's mind as to who will be his number one. So like I said, probably the best battle going on is in that position. So we'll keep an eye who gets a nod against Panama, because I think it'll be quite telling about the kind of short to medium term future about the number one selection in the goalkeeper
Mm.
position.
I think there's one other interesting battle that maybe we'll talk about maybe in the coming window, Stevie, ahead, and that's maybe the form of Sam Adekugbe, who's starting to get back somewhere of the level that he was showing prior to the World Cup with Canada. So that might be an opportunity for Jesse Marsh to push Alphonso Davies maybe a little bit further forward. It might be a threat to Jacob Schaffelberg, even though he's been excellent really in the last year or 6 months certainly under Jesse Marsh. So that might be another one, but there's a lot of areas I think that Jesse Marsh can be really positive about, that he has got strength in depth. He's got numbers really and players that can come in and push each other now going forward. So that's an interesting one for me. But I think overall, Stevie, I think it's a game that Canada should win. I think they will win, but I think they have to win convincingly, really, and get Jonathan David amongst the goals and get the team firing with a goal scoring team now going forward. I think the potential is there for Canada now to kick on from this.